and y'all have no idea how much you mean to me. Some people that I particularly want to highlight are my wonderful parents, Jeremy and Patricia Langdale, who are here. They came from New York, and it's very exciting to have them here and all of you here to witness this journey that I have been on through agricultural education. So our first question is, who do I aspire to be as a teacher? Now, honestly, when I saw that question, I thought it was like a little bit much. I was like, well, I don't know, I'm still new to this. Like, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know how I can aspire to be something that I don't know a lot about, and it was very stressful. But what I have learned over the course of this semester, and really the time that I've spent here at Penn State, is we can see what we aspire to be through looking at what we've done and looking at where we're going. And so this is how we're going to do that. So I have a little bit of an identity crisis here. I'm from New York, but I go to school in Pennsylvania, and I'm student teaching in Virginia, right? So when you only have 10 seconds to introduce who you are and where you're from, it gets a little finicky. But the way I see it is that these are neat little chapters of my life that really mean different things depending on where I am. So I start off in New York, right? This is where I'm from. I graduated from Warwick Valley High School in New York. I was a member of the Warwick Valley FFA, and in that experience I got to learn about agriculture and really discover it for the first time. I didn't know anything about it. The day that I joined FFA and I went home to tell my parents that I went to an FFA meeting, they thought I had joined FBLA, not FFA. So they really had no idea about agriculture, and so I didn't either. And so when I got to high school and I got to really be involved in FFA and see agricultural education, I got to see how it impacts lives, how it impacted my life, and how I wanted to be involved in that in some way, shape, or form. And so when it came time for me to graduate high school, I knew I wanted to be in agriculture in some way, shape, or form, but I didn't want to be an ag teacher. So I decided that I would study agricultural business at SUNY Morrisville, and I did that for 2 years before I realized, I don't really like business, and I think teaching students is more impactful and more what I am meant to do. So I came to Penn State, and then we're in Pennsylvania. And so New York's like this new beginning, this opening. And Pennsylvania is the learning and the growing and the becoming of who I am. Because these past few years in Pennsylvania, I have grown and I have learned so much about agricultural education, about what I value, about who I am. And then we have Virginia. So I'm taking these things that I've learned in New York, I'm taking these things that I've learned in Pennsylvania, and I'm applying them, and I'm going to Virginia, and I'm going out, and I'm going to see what I can do with these experiences, and it's a really cool opportunity. So what do I believe in education? I believe in a lot of different things. In my experience in agricultural education, we have the FFA creed, we have the Ag Teachers Creed, and there are creeds that kind of sum up our lives in a way, that we showcase our values. And so my own educational philosophy is similar to my own creed that I follow through with. So I believe that every single person is involved in agriculture and a global food system in some way, shape, or form, and that is an opportunity because students need to learn about agriculture. And it's such a great opportunity because a lot of kids have no idea, like I had no idea. I believe in hands-on learning. Agricultural education, that is the bread and butter of what we do. We teach concepts and then we apply them through real-life practical knowledge. I believe in a supportive learning environment. I believe that students grow when they support one another, when they support their peers, but when they believe in themselves and when they feel open and allow themselves to grow in that. And I believe that agriculture is more than cows, sows, and plows. We hear that all the time, right? I think that agriculture is so much more than we can even imagine or fathom, and it goes in so many different ways. And so all of these things go into how I want to shape my classroom. So when I'm in the actual classroom, we have some expectations, procedures, and consequences. So these are my classroom expectations. We have respect. Seems really simple. The goal is to respect one another. Like I said before, we grow and we learn more when we're supportive of one another. We have a supportive learning environment. Respect yourself. That goes into respecting the classroom that you're in, your beliefs, but also holding yourself to a higher standard. I think in agricultural education, it can be easily misperceived that it's easier, and it's not. We should hold ourselves to a higher standard, and that's what I expect in my classroom. And then to respect the classroom, to respect the people in it, to respect the space, to keep yourself safe and clean and all those things. I expect people to participate. Come to class, ready to go. I mean, that's pretty simple. And the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated. So I put the kind people, my kind of people. Then we have our procedures. So when students walk into the classroom, what are they doing? First of all, I want them to be prepared. I don't necessarily believe in a lot of homework, but I do expect them to come to class ready to talk, ready to discuss, and ready to learn. Part of that goes with bell work. They're going to come into the classroom, they're going to have a question or something that they should do right away when they come into the class. Raise your hand so that everybody has a chance to speak, and put phones and technology away unless we're using it for some sort of project. I believe that technology can be beneficial, but I also believe that it can be really harmful if we're not paying attention to our usage and not paying attention to what is being taught. And finally, we have the consequences. So of course we don't like to give out consequences, but I believe that I have these, and if I stick to them from the first day, students will have that expectation, right? So the first offense, talk with me after class. Dr. Curry likes to call this a come to Jesus moment. I think that it's really important. The first offense, particularly, a lot of times it's not because that student is repetitively bad. I think it's because, maybe they're having a bad day. Second offense, phone call home. Third offense, detention. And fourth offense, sent to the office. So these are obviously not fun, but if things turn out badly, consequences need to occur. So if I were to start my own agriculture program right here, right now, these are the courses that I would implement in a classroom. We have Intro to Agriculture. This one would be designed to be really broad, based on student interest, to go for local agriculture all the way to international agriculture. I'm super passionate about international agriculture, and I love that it can go in so many different directions, and so I believe that that's such an important topic. Hot topics in agriculture. This can be debates or current news or articles or politics. It can really go in a lot of different directions too, and I think that's an opportunity. And then agricultural business. I think having a foundation in business type vocabulary and concepts is really important. And even though I decided to not study agricultural business, I do think that having that foundation is very important. Animal science. Animal science is definitely not one of my strong suits, but I think that it would be a class that I would learn along with my students. Learning animal breeds and animal husbandry, talking about careers, the opportunities that they have. So many students that are passionate about animal science think that, I'm going to go to school and be a vet. And the percentage of the people that actually go to school and be a vet is very slim. And so showing those people that are passionate and willing to do the work that there are other careers other than vet science is a really cool opportunity. Plant science. So with having any plant system, soil science is so important with that. So that would definitely be something I would want to do. Greenhouse management, that again is, if we're in a classroom, if I had my theoretical program, it would have a greenhouse, so students would be able to have those experiences and see how they would manage that kind of location. Pesticides, I think this is a really big one. It also can lead to a certification in pesticide management, pesticide applicators, that sort of thing. And then careers as well. I think that that's really important. And then agricultural leadership. This is my favorite, so that's why I put it on there. I love the public speaking, the FFA, the leadership kind of things. That's my favorite part of agricultural education, and I believe that it changes students' lives. And that's why I think it's so important to incorporate it in your curriculum and not just have it outside of the classroom in other realms. So we have, the next part is how we integrate essentially the three-circle model, how we do classroom lab, how we do SAE, which is supervised agricultural experience, and how we do FFA. And so first, we have our lab integration. And so for AEE 350, we were tasked with creating some sort of ag mechanics project. And so it had to be a $15 project that students can make in the classroom. And so I made these little concrete planters here. And I think they're really cool. One, because concrete is a foundation of a lot of different ag mechanics classrooms. I think a lot of people do concrete, a lot of students enjoy it, and it's not incredibly difficult to do, which is really cool because students that maybe aren't in ag mechanics but they are in plant science might be interested in marketing or showcasing their plants using what is the ag mechanics project. I also think it's really cool because it can be used as a fundraiser. I don't know, when I was looking up how much these concrete planters cost when you buy them at Lowe's, especially the big ones, they can be $50 to $60, but it's not that expensive to make, and so those value-added products can bring a lot of income into your chapter and into your program. FFA integration. So when I'm student teaching, CDE participation will be encouraged. For the classes that I will be teaching, poultry and meats are some of those courses, and they're built right into the CDEs that they correspond with. So these career development events where students can compete, they can use their knowledge and compete in what they've learned. Again, I mentioned that leadership is my favorite part of agricultural education, and so participation in leadership opportunities. So we have ACEs in Pennsylvania, and there are different regional conferences and federation conferences in Virginia, because that's how they do a lot of their stuff. But I believe that stuff's really important. And then SAE integration. So supervised agricultural experiences provide students the opportunity to learn about agriculture outside of the classroom through some sort of work experience. They get that hands-on knowledge. And so in agricultural education, we have the three-circle model. We have classroom lab, FFA, and SAE. And that's why I think SAEs should be required in agricultural education programs. The students that do SAEs, so all of them, will have their experiences tracked, and they'll do record keeping through AET, which is a site that allows you to have basically an online journal of all the things that you do for your SAE. And then lastly, SAE Fridays. I think that this is a cool way to implement having your students share about their own SAEs. This will be maybe 1 or 2 students every Friday talking in class about what they do and how they implement their SAE. So recruitment. How do we recruit students for our program? Agricultural education, for a lot of it, is an elective course where students choose to join. So how do we do that? How do we get them in? I think FFA chapter events are a big one, allowing students to come into different events. Reaching out to a variety of students. And I believe that there's not just one stereotypical ag kid. I think that all students from all different walks of life can be involved in ag. Middle school recruitment days. This can be chapter officers going down to the middle school and talking about their program, talking about what they do in FFA, Ooh, I did not mean to go that way, but that's okay. Community involvement. So at Broadway, they do Young Farmers and Ranchers, and Janae, my cooperating teacher, often says young farmers and ranchers, because a lot of times it's like, you know, older aged farmers that come in and they still want to learn about agricultural education. Inviting the community to your banquet, community-based instruction, different volunteer events in the community. And SAE opportunities, I think, is a big one too. Reaching out to the stakeholders in your community, making that connection so that students in your program can visit that program or have an SAE in that business, things like that. So what experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to become a better teacher? This is where I get to talk about all the stuff that I've done at Penn State, and I really like that. So we've had some key courses. ANSI 201, which is where these lovely photos were taken, is really like diving deep into animal science. And it was honestly one of the hardest courses I've ever taken, but I have learned a lot about animals, and through the lab experiences and opportunities, it's truly hands-on. And so you really learn a lot by doing, and that was a cool opportunity. Higher Ed 303, which is leadership development through orientation. I was an orientation leader, and this course is required in order to have that position. And I learned a lot about Penn State through it, but I also learned a lot about group development, and I learned a lot about the transition phases that students go through when they go through high school and college, and where their mind and their psychology is at as they go through those transitions. And I think it's a really cool opportunity. My international agriculture courses, I put all of them down there because I loved every single one of them. 100 is Intro to Ag, International Ag. 490 is the senior capstone class to the minor. It's similar to 100, where we like do deep dives into international agriculture, but it goes even further, and the discussion group is even smaller, so you really have to participate. And then 499 was when I got to go to Belize. It was AE/INTAG 499, Indigenous Knowledge and Agricultural Education. Got a lot of opportunities to learn from students in Belize and to learn about education in different places. And then AE 311, Developing Youth Leadership Through Organization and Program Structure. This is Dr. Curry's class. I kind of was like, it's like the FFA class. And I felt really confident going into that class because I was very involved in FFA. But I really learned a lot about having a well-rounded program and learning about how I can implement different procedures in the classroom and in my program. So that was a really cool course. Some key assignments that went with that. In higher ed, the orientation class, we did a cultural fluency project where we were tasked with taking on the identity of somebody that doesn't identify the way you do. So that could be like religion, race, things like that. And I got to talk with students who were African American and talk about their experiences through Penn State and college and what they know. And I thought that that was really cool to have like kind of awkward discussions and learning about other people's experience and not being in my own shoes. INTAG 490, we had a grant proposal final project where we got to write a grant that none of us had ever written before, and about a Children and Youth Empowerment Center in Kenya. It was like the most wild thing ever, but I got to learn the process of grant writing, and that I think will be useful in the future. And then ANSI 201, the lab sessions. Some of the things that I've been certified in while I've been here. CPR and first aid. Teachers are certified in CPR and first aid, so I've done that course. I got Google Classroom Level 1 certified. So for this, it's using the entire Google suite. So like Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Classroom and Gmail and all of those things and how they work together and how we can implement them in our classrooms to better students. And then the National Safety Tractor and Machinery Operation Program, which is a mouthful. And it is talking about how you can stay safe while riding tractors, as the name so implies. I also have an international agriculture minor. That's why I'm so passionate about it. Some of the things I've done is teach Ag Belize, which is the INTAG/AEE 499 course. Me and one of my fellow cohort members, Caitlin Liska, last year did a presentation about our study abroad experiences at the Global Learning in Agriculture online conference, which was cool. This was outside of Penn State, but I got to go to South Africa through the International Leadership Seminar for State Officers for National FFA. And all of these experiences are ones that I hope to tie into the classroom and bring a global perspective out of agriculture. Professional development. So we have had a ton of professional development opportunities for Teach Ag 20 as a cohort. We've had the National Association of Agricultural Educators FAST Symposium, which was in Anaheim, California. We went to the Pennsylvania Association of Agricultural Educators state conference, and we also went to one of their regional meetings, so we got to see how things are run as a whole state and also just as a region. We had an inquiry fast track with Krista Pontius, where we, for like 16 hours, just like talked about inquiry and demonstrated inquiry and how we can implement that in our classroom, and that was a really cool experience. National FFA Convention, I attended a workshop there. DSA Montana, we call that Domestic Study Away. We had the opportunity to go across the country and view agricultural education in another state, because from state to state, agricultural education is so different. And then the Pennsylvania and Virginia FFA state conventions I also got to attend. So the positions that I have done while I've been at Penn State and beyond that have impacted me, I was an orientation leader. And this has nothing to do with agriculture, but it was still one of the most impactful positions I've ever gotten to do in my entire life. I got to learn how to have really hard discussions with students. Students that were nervous about going into college, not really knowing what they were doing, not knowing their major, not knowing new people. Having those tough discussions was easily one of the most impactful things that I could take away as a teacher. To have those come to Jesus meetings with students, you have to know how to have tough conversations. And doing that was one of the greatest ways that I possibly could have learned that. And also just the people and getting to interact with students was honestly amazing. I also got to serve as a Teach Ag Avenger here for the Center for Professional Development. And in this position, I got to talk about agricultural education. I got to talk about Penn State, two of my favorite things in the whole world. And I got to welcome new students to the university and really promote agricultural education in a way that wasn't involved in FFA, but talking about agriculture, which was a really cool opportunity. And then I got to serve as a New York FFA state officer in 2015, 2016. And this was really the thing that fast-tracked me to agricultural education. I was an agricultural business major at this point, and getting to go around New York State, getting to communicate with other agricultural educators, and getting to meet students and interact with them really was the thing that made me go, oh wow, like this education thing, like how cool is that? Like it was such an awesome opportunity, and it really fast-tracked me into agricultural education. So how am I going to encourage a diversity of learners? So I mentioned earlier that I truly believe that there's no one stereotypical ag kid. And I think that encouraging diversity in your program is essential. How I plan to do that is to create curriculum that involves other classes, to involve science education, to involve even art students that might be interested in building something and merging that with mechanics, to getting other classes involved so that there isn't one stereotypical ag student. I think that's really important. I think also being an open space and being a supportive space, as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, is so important for that. So how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? I'll be student teaching at Broadway High School in Broadway, Virginia. This program has affiliate FFA membership, which in Pennsylvania, every school has affiliate FFA membership, but in Pennsylvania, it's not that way. What affiliate FFA membership means is that every student that is involved in agricultural education is an FFA member. This school, they do that. Broadway has every student that's involved in agricultural education also in their FFA program. It's a 2-teacher program with Janae Pettit and Herb Hoffeditz, and they both have different strengths that make their program really well-rounded. They have a shop that is absolutely massive, and so students have the opportunity to really dive into that, and then they also have a greenhouse. So cooperating center evaluation. These are the things that in the past couple of months I've realized they do well, and things that are areas of improvement. FFA participation, well-rounded curriculum, and community involvement are things they do awesome at. They have that affiliate membership, they have well-rounded curriculum, and their community is incredibly supportive of their program. Areas of improvement, SAE integration. The downside of having so many students involved is that it's really hard to go out on individual SAE visits. And so a lot of their students compete at the county fair, and so you see a bulk of a lot of the projects in that realm, but they also have other ones as well. So it can be an area that can be improved, but it's kind of a sheer, oh my goodness, there's so many people. And then leadership conferences and opportunities. This isn't necessarily Broadway in general, but it is Virginia FFA. They do a little bit less leadership conferences than they do in Pennsylvania and New York, and so students don't have as many opportunities for that. So these are the things that I will be teaching. I don't have one really pretty big schedule because it's split up into even days and odd days, but these are the blocks. They're 90 minutes approximately each. So I'll be teaching ag power, ag leadership, ag business, horticulture, animal science. So what are some things that I see as strengths for myself going into student teaching? I think that I am incredibly empathetic, and I think that is beneficial for students. I really try to meet people where they're at, and so I think that I'll be able to connect deeper with students. And so FFA, I served as a state officer. I've been incredibly involved in FFA since high school. It is what got me into a love of agriculture and agricultural education, and I feel strongly in that. Enthusiasm. I am very excited to be able to student teach, and I'm very enthusiastic about that. And I also have a willingness to learn. So what are my goals for student teaching? I hope to grow my professional network. I think meeting other teachers in different states, in different programs is incredibly important. I learned that at NAAE, and I also, in the fact that I've somehow have lived, or I'm going to live in 3 states at once, to expand my content knowledge. I think that this is an opportunity. There are some things in agriculture that I feel really good about, and others that I maybe not feel so good about, and so I think that this is an opportunity to expand that content. To gain more confidence. There are some things that I'm not so good at, and I maybe don't feel so confident about it. And I hope that actually going out and doing the things that are tough, the hard things, will make me gain more confidence. I hope to always be striving to incorporate all 3 circles of the 3-circle model. I believe that that is so important to agricultural education, and we should implement that in any way that we can. And to learn how to have a better work-life balance. When I was at NAAE, I was in a workshop where they said, I don't like the term work-life balance, I like the term work-life harmony, because it's never going to be a perfect balance. And I really want to learn to incorporate that into my life. Thank you guys. What questions are there?
Let's start the 15-minute question period with a question from the audience. So I saw that your periods are an hour and a half long, and I was just kind of curious, like what kind of strategies that you have as a teacher to kind of make those hour and a half periods a little bit more palatable for both you and the students and still make it an effective session.
Yeah, so I chose Broadway not solely because they had block scheduling where they had 90 minutes, but it was definitely one of the key factors that made me want to go there, because in my high school we had 45-minute periods. And so I really wanted to stretch and, grow my capacity to learn how to write lessons for 90 minutes. And it was rough, guys. Like, it's a blessing and a curse. I think that it's so much time, and so when you have a lab activity where you're like really going in on the hands-on stuff, it's really awesome because you're like, oh my goodness, I can like get through this. This is awesome. I don't have to take like 4 class periods to get it done. But when it's things like vocabulary and basics where you kind of have to lecture, it can be really difficult. And I think the strategies that I've implemented in order to really make the difficulties of having 90 minutes a little bit less difficult is to find a balance between, okay, I'll have to lecture for maybe 20 minutes, but after that we're gonna go into the shop and do something, and not just do 90 minutes of like vocabulary and then have the next time just be like all shop. I think like finding a balance between those things has made it a little bit more palatable for me and hopefully for my students. Am I counting on people? Does it matter?
You can ask out
okay.
Questions you want.
Yeah, Jen.
Thank you. So you mentioned how you had growth in New York and Pennsylvania, and then like how you're looking forward to grow in Virginia. And you outlined all these goals that you had. So how do you plan to like hold yourself accountable to ensure that you get that optimal growth in Virginia too?
That's a really good question. I like that question. Well, I think that I do like to journal, and so I think that that's probably the biggest way that I'll hold myself accountable is like every day or whenever I can, because sometimes I don't journal every day, and being able to look back on the different situations that I have experienced previously in the semester will be a really cool opportunity to like see how much I've grown. I think that writing down those goals is more of a concrete way to make sure that they get done. And so that's probably the way that I'll hold myself accountable. Yeah, Amanda.
So you're going to be, so currently in Pennsylvania you have the cohort around you and friends around you, and now you're going to be in Virginia kind of by yourself through this stressful time within life. So how do you plan to keep yourself going while being so separated away from everybody?
That's quite the question, Amanda. So the way I always saw like going to Virginia to student teach, I remember being in my placement interview and one of y'all asked me like, are you gonna be like good like going that far away? And I was like, well, I traveled 4 hours from home to get here. And so I had to learn how to meet new people here, and I had to learn how to build new connections here. And so I feel confident in the fact that I've had that experience before. I'm going into somewhere else where, yeah, it's not necessarily easy to start that all over again, but I think it's actually really fun and it's a new opportunity to be able to make more connections. So it's a give and a take. I also think that having a digital presence is so important with that. I think being able to reach out to the cohort or reach out to the faculty at Penn State where I don't know what I'm doing is really important, and I think it's a way that I'll be able to still have those connections even though I'm far away.
Erin, could you please identify 3 dispositions of a professional educator?
3 dispositions of a...
3 critical dispositions of a professional educator.
Okay, so we often talk about knowledge, skills, and dispositions. So knowledge is the things that you know, skills is the things that you're able to do, and the dispositions are the attitudes that you have going into those situations. So I think some of the dispositions of a professional educator, I think that they have to be passionate about what they do. I don't think any teacher goes into the classroom not passionate about what they want to do. So that's number 1. I think Being hardworking. Being a teacher, I'm not even a teacher yet, and it's one of the most thankless jobs. And I think that you have to be able to keep chugging along and be there for your students, and that's the number one thing that matters. I think hardworking is super important. And then I think caring and empathetic. Your students, you're not teaching a class, you're teaching, 15 individual students. And so you have to be caring, you have to be empathetic to their needs in order to teach them well.
We have some questions from our digital audience. Your first comes from Janae Pettit, your cooperating teacher.
Hi, Miss Pettit.
She says that Broadway is a one-to-one school, as in each student has their own Chromebook. Do you plan to incorporate Chromebooks into lessons regularly?
Absolutely. I plan to use Chromebooks regularly. We have had a lot of opportunities to learn about different technology and how to incorporate it in the classroom, thanks to AE 412 and to Tiffany Mori, who gave us a bunch of resources. We've learned about Kahoot and using it as a resource. We've learned about, what else have we learned? Poll Everywhere, or Poll Everyone. Those are really cool because they're ways to visualize things differently and review differently. And I also think that the collaboration aspect of the one-to-one with Google Classroom and things is really cool because students get to work together in real time. They get to use the resources that they have online and incorporate that into their projects. So absolutely I plan on using technology and especially the one-to-one aspect of the school pretty regularly.
She's a follow-up. She says, great answer, and your future ag leadership students have been watching and they think that you did great and said, good job, Miss Langdale.
Oh, thanks.
Dr. Curry, we have some more questions from the virtual audience. Okay, so you have two from Rosalind Cowan. Rose is a member of BSU Ag at 18, and she's just finishing up her master's here with us at Penn State. Her first question is, what are some ways you will incorporate international ag into your classes?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one is the agricultural leadership class that is tuned in right now, is a fusion class with Spanish 3. And so they saw a need in the community for students to have Spanish-speaking skills, but also to have that ag leadership corresponding with that. And so I think that is a primary way to use international agriculture because you're using the skills of Spanish and the cultural norms that you're learning through a Spanish class, and you can implement international agriculture because there are other countries in the world that don't speak English. So I think it's a really cool opportunity, and that's definitely the first one that comes to mind. I'm sure there's many others.
So there's a follow-up question that goes along with it. This is a two-parter. How would you handle pushback from students and the community members who don't agree or understand why you want to incorporate that international agriculture component?
So I think now more than ever we live in a global atmosphere. I don't think we can turn on our phones or our TVs without seeing the world at our fingertips. And so I think that is so important, and it's probably the biggest thing that I would argue to push back is to say, well, we experience global trends, global agriculture in so many different ways. And agriculture as an industry is so dependent on global trade, global commodities. I mean, we're eating bananas in December. That's not a possibility in Pennsylvania. We need global agriculture, right? So I would probably say something along those lines in order to fight against pushback.
Thank you. That's all I have from the online audience.
Okay. Yes.
Do you have any specific moment that you can pinpoint where you really felt yourself grow as a professional?
That's a good question. I think actually it was doing orientation. Maddie's a fellow orientation leader, so she understands this. I think that we go through a week intensive training where we learn about where we really incorporate like Penn State knowledge, and also like preparing to have these hard discussions with students. And we'll be in like a room for like 12 hours and just like learning constant knowledge. And I remember we were going over one of our workshops or one of our sessions with what we would be in the future teaching students. And I think that moment where I was like, oh wow, I'm doing this, and I'm really scared to do this and have this hard conversation. We were going through our We Are session, which talks about diversity and inclusion. And I was like, I don't feel like I'm very diverse, and I feel like I'm not the person that should be having this conversation. I feel like I'm not the right fit for it. But being able to do it anyway, and to do it well, and to grow over the course of the summer and continue to do it well, was really a moment where I was like, oh, I'm seeing the growth in who I am and who I can, and things that I can talk about and have real discussions about. And I think that was a really cool opportunity.
Erin, please explain how or why effective communication is essential in a productive work life.
So I think effective communication is so incredibly important because how do I want to word this? So if we're not communicating effectively, we're not able to understand or have knowledge about what is happening, especially in like a digital space. Having effective communication, it needs to happen because in that digital space, if we're not clearly communicating what we want to say, things can be left up to interpretation because there's no like actual emotion behind it, and so that can be really difficult. And I think having effective communication is essential for an educator as well in a classroom, and communicating with our students, communicating the things that we need or want done is really important to how we grow as an educator.
Can you provide me one or two specific examples of strategies that lead to effective communication in a professional workplace?
Yeah, so one strategy would be the beauty of using digital content. Something that I have gotten to learn how to use is using like Google Calendar or what's the Office version of Calendar, whatever that is, and being able to set up schedules and see what's going on, and being able to like check off those appointments or things that we need to do. And then another one would be just quite simply not beating around the bush in face-to-face conversation, I think is really important. I think having a clear, concise way of saying this is what needs to happen is incredibly important too.
Erin, could you give me an example of something content-wise that you aren't probably as good as you need to be once you actually start to teach in the courses that you're going to be teaching, and how you're going to get there? So give me a specific example of something that in the content of agriculture that you're not as familiar with or not as accustomed to as you'd like to be, and how you're going to get there.
So first thing that came to my mind was welding. Welding is interesting because I don't have a ton of experience doing it, and the only way to really learn how to do it is to do it. So my plan for how I've set up the units that I'll be teaching in Ag Power is to do woodworking first and then welding, so that I have a little bit of transition time between when I walk into Broadway and when I actually have to teach welding, because I'll be in a location where I can practice those skills and gain more confidence in order to teach it well.
I think that is all the time we have remaining. Thank you, Erin.
Thank y'all.
That concludes